Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back, and today we are starting something new, something hopefully a little bit fun. Obviously, Corona break. We're full swing into it now. It's basically a week into it.
Jeez.
I mean, are you coping?
No, I'm really not coping well.
So, as we're not coping, especially not coping with the lack of F1, we decided that we would, every Sunday, release a classic race review. Today's Suzuka 2005. Why? Because it was a standout race for a certain Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh.
And you know, if you watch us or listen to us on the F1 Fantasy Weekly podcast, you'll know we have the Kimi moment of the week.
There was only one place to kick off this series. That was with a classic Kimi race.
It was indeed. And we are going to be talking about the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix. Obviously was based at Suzuka. And yeah, we're going to kind of do a race review of it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. You might go back and watch it. We were watching it on F1 TV, and obviously it's a few years back now, so we did kind of reaffirm a few details afterwards. But yes, if you have F1 TV and the races that aren't covered by Sky during their time, it means there is no commentary. But it was a hell of a race still to watch, but it does mean that some of the things we were like, what happened there again?
Yeah, with a few of the camera shots, it was a bit like, oh, that's happened.
Oh, that's suddenly gone. But yes, hopefully you enjoy it, but we'll now get stuck in to the classic race review. So, on the front row started Ralf Schumacher with his 6th and final pole position of his career. He was racing with Toyota this time, and Toyota, what a livery that was actually, the white and the kind of red. That was a really nice livery.
There were a lot of white cars.
There were.
Just in the whole grid.
They're a bit like 2020 actually. There's quite a few white cars
there. Are actually, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we're having a throwback. But yes, and it was a Japan manufacturer's lockout as Jenson Button was second in the BAR Honda. Juncelo Fisichella was third, while Christian Klein had qualified 4th in the Red Bull. The first year of Red Bull racing, with David Coulthard back in 6th, and I believe in 5th, I'm going there, was Takuma Sato. Well, I might be wrong on that.
Takuma Sato.
But there was qualifying. But, interesting to note on qualifying that makes this interesting. The McLarens have struggled. I think it had rained the day before in qualifying. Kimi Räikkönen, out of the classified qualifiers, was last in 17th place. Jarno Trulli in the other Toyota hadn't been able to set a time, and either had won Pablo Montoya, who was racing for McLaren and Kimi Räikkönen's partner at the time. In 16th was current championship leader Fernando Alonso, and in 14th was Michael Schumacher. Those will be 3 names that are very important to this race. But there we go. We've got our kind of grid set up there. Then the race started. And what happened at the start, Steve?
Nothing. It was silent. There was no lights out and away we go. It was just... The
V8s did sound good though.
They did sound really good. But anyway, it was quite a, I'd say, dramatic first lap. Straight from the get-go, Fisichella overtook Jenson to go into second. Then into the first corner, Sato and Barrichello both ran wide, and as Barrichello ran wide, he collided with Sato, picked up a puncture.
Then to round off a little bit of chaotic, I mean, you know, as first corners go, wasn't too dramatic. You know, just 2 cars in terms of that, but you know, 2 races that were affected, running off into the gravel. But obviously starting from the back in 18th position, Juan Pablo Montoya was trying to get round Jacques Villeneuve, and he was pushed wide and then ended up in a barrier, and yeah, the back of that McLaren was a little bit...
Yeah.
destroyed.
We just saw a tyre bobbling across the track. A marshal quickly running after it.
And then the marshal prepared to kind of, with the fire extinguisher, it's like, if it sets a light, I'm ready. That was quite a funny image from it. It's the small things when there's no commentary that kind of amuse you and make you kind of laugh in there. But yes, it was definitely Jacques Villeneuve pushing wide, because he then, post-race, received a 25-second penalty, which pushed him down further in the running order.
Then we had a safety car for about 4 or 5 laps?
Yeah, 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah.
It was, maintained the first part. Obviously, Ralf Schumacher was still leading with Fisichella second, and then Button third, with, I believe, Coulthard was fourth at that stage.
And then once the action restarted, Sato back in it again with Trulli. They collided.
Turn 16.
Turn 16.
They're kind of tight. Turn 16 into 17 after 130R.
Trulli ended up.
Well, the side of his car just kind of looked in tatters.
Yes, he ended up retiring, and Sato, obviously not having a great race already, ended up getting disqualified at the end of the day. He did continue and finish the race, but he was disqualified after it.
As the Japanese driver in the race, racing for BAR Honda.
Really wasn't a good day.
No, it wasn't. Not a good day for Honda on that front. But still, they had JP.
Yeah.
Jenson was still up there, qualifying on the front row and running in the podium positions at that stage. We then had Antonio Pizzonia around about the same time, actually, as that kind of collision happened. He spun off and beached his Williams in the gravel, and they were the 3 retirees from the race. But then the main part of the race, and the real exciting part of the race, was the battle in between kind of 7th, 8th and 9th, with Alonso, Raikkonen and Schumacher making their way through the field. Schumacher was obviously ahead, and it was kind of like a 3-way battle with each other. Although Alonso and Raikkonen never kind of battled each other, it was in 2005 it was Renault versus McLaren basically. Yeah. And Ferrari, after dominating in 2004, were kind of off the pace. They were playing catch up in this year. But the wily old fox, 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher, he was making life pretty difficult.
Yeah, he was putting on incredible defensive display. I think at the first it was Alonso on his tail, whilst Kimi made his way through the pack. And then there was just a stage of the race, there was 3 of them just in a train for about a few laps. No mistakes, all driving pretty spot on. Until a particular Alonso made a quite audacious move into... what corner?
Well, it was into 130R, and Michael, this is one of the kind of incredible overtakes, because this was back when 130R was still a really difficult corner. It was tighter and it was real kind of throttle control, and it was a massively high speed. Obviously, it's been kind of straightened out a bit, because I think if you were watching the 2019 season, you would have seen Charles Leclerc, when his car was damaged, trying to keep his wing mirror on, taking 130R one-handed, whilst holding his wing mirror on with one hand. So it's not quite the corner it was, but yes, Michael Schumacher, with a fantastic defensive drive at this point, was going, look, if you're going to take me, you're going to have to go around the outside. You are not getting down the inside.
He was just hugging those apexes, everyone.
Yeah, and kind of positioning his car in the middle of the track and going, nope, you are not getting past. So Alonso, he was like, I am getting past, and then subsequently had to pit shortly after that.
About a couple of laps, yeah.
Yeah, after the first round of pit stops, and then obviously Kimi and Schumacher battled and really pushed each other again. Kimi kept on going. Michael just, I think several times on that kind of...
the first corner.
On the pit straight, yeah, exactly. Going in, it looks like he might do it. No, Michael just holds position. But after the kind of first round of pit stops, I suppose the kind of main changes in position were Fisichella had managed to get ahead of Ralf Schumacher for the lead of the race. But Ralf had pitted really early. I think it was around lap 12 he pitted, which was a bit odd. And
we'll come on to that later, their particular pit strategy.
their interesting strategy from Toyota. But strangely enough, so Alonso had spent all this time trying to battle and get past Michael Schumacher, and then Kimi and Schumacher gone ahead. Then, after the first round of pit stops, Raikkonen and Schumacher pitted at exactly the same time, and they were right on each other's tails going out the pits.
It was a good pit stop by Ferrari, kept Schumacher ahead.
It was indeed. But then Alonso had managed to end up behind them somehow.
Himself, yeah. And a couple cars behind, I think.
Yeah,
but I think he was fighting through traffic.
I couldn't remember, because obviously, like we said, the commentary wasn't there. But it looked like he did have some issues with his race, because I remember there was one point earlier before Raikkonen had caught up with him. He'd overtaken Klein in the Red Bull earlier. It was on Schumacher, really chasing. And then down the pit straight, like, Schumacher flew off. And Klein overtook Alonso again, and then he had to overtake. And so there were a number of kind of those moments where, yeah, he kind of got held up in traffic a little bit too long and couldn't really make the overtake stick to go there. But yeah, it was absolutely incredible fighting. But before the kind of second kind of stage of pit stops, both Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen had got past Schumacher first on the pit straight. Finally
made the move. Just about.
Exactly. And then Alonso had. But yeah, that battle was probably for about maybe 10 to 15 laps during the race. It might have even been longer.
I'd say longer. It was most of the race was on this midfield battle. We hardly saw the leaders at all until towards the end of the race.
Which was quite funny, because the leaders, it really wasn't exciting at the kind of front of the race, because Ralf Schumacher stormed ahead at the start. Then after his early pit stop, Fisichella kind of stormed ahead, and he had a pretty uneventful race and going from there. But then at the end, you know, Alonso and Raikkonen were still kind of making their way up. I believe it was Button running in second and Webber in the other Williams. Obviously the other Williams had been retired out earlier by being beached in the race, but yes, they were kind of quickly chasing down and pursuing at this stage. But they kind of, again, Raikkonen was kind of getting stuck behind Webber here, which allowed Alonso to catch up, and everything got a little bit closer before Alonso then had to pit again.
Yeah, everyone did their next round of pits.
Indeed. Raikkonen had to pit again, and they had managed to kind of Fisichella, Webber and Button all had pitted, and that left Raikkonen in the lead. Alonso had pitted earlier, and he'd made his way all the way back down to 8th, I think, but he had then caught up later on into the race. And
Kimi was about 8 seconds ahead, went into the pits.
Exactly, came out in second place, and then it was just a hot pursuit of whether he could get to Giancarlo Fisichella first. But Alonso had then worked his way up until 4th position of those pit stops, and he then, I think with 6 laps to go, was able to make the move on Mark Webber to claim that 3rd place and get on the podium for today, before on the last lap, the last possible point he could have overtaken, well, the normal point that Kimi had made all his moves all race, which was on the pit straight going into turn 1, he made the move stick on Fisichella, and was able to win the race. So went from 17th to 1st in that race, and pretty impressive from the kind of both Renault boys as well. Obviously Fisichella 3rd to 2nd was still a pretty solid.
It kind of seems unremarkable. Kimi went 17th to 1st, Alonso went 16th to 3rd, Fisichella 3rd to 2nd. It's like,
underachiever. But it's still a very good, he just drove a very solid race in terms of it, and
wasn't as quick as Kimi.
Exactly, Fisichella really was the number 2 driver in that team as well, so it was all about getting the constructors points, because obviously in the constructors McLaren didn't score any points. Well, they did. They scored points with Kimi Raikkonen, but didn't score any points with Juan Pablo Montoya with him going out in the first lap.
Yeah.
So getting a 2-3 for Renault was good for the constructors. And then obviously Kimi Raikkonen closed the gap in the championship to Fernando Alonso, who was leading, by claiming that 1st position. But yes.
And they go back to Ralf Schumacher, said to mention, he did a 3-stop strategy, and he ended up finishing behind Michael.
Yeah, he finished 8th in the end, which was the last point scoring position.
So he just got points, but
it wasn't
starting on pole.
We know Suzuka is a race especially in recent years it's been with kind of McLaren and with Red Bull and Toro Rosso, obviously now AlphaTauri. Doing well in their home Grand Prix is massive to the kind of Japanese manufacturers, and from starting on the front row, both Ralph and Jensen both finishing not even getting a podium position, I imagine wasn't great for them.
Yeah.
Obviously Jarno Trulli being taken out by the other Honda, so literally battle of the Japanese manufacturers on track, and the other one being disqualified. Wasn't the best Grand Prix for them.
And then the pit strategy just really didn't help either.
But yeah, from watching the race, there was literally no any overtakes whatsoever. It was literally like Schumacher, Alonso, Raikkonen dominated the entire race.
Perfect laps, lap after lap.
And it was just like, are they going to get past Michael? Are they going to get past Michael? Are they? Oh, yes, they've just got past. What, they've pitted? Oh no! But it was such an intense battle, and I think, when we did the track comparison video, I think it was China versus Imola, and I was talking about Imola. Sometimes it's not about, having lots of overtaking in terms of that. It's almost that battle of will he overtake?
Yeah.
And they were exciting, and they almost felt greater overtakes because of how hard you'd watched each driver work for it. The Renault and McLaren were superior to the Ferrari, but because of Michael's skill, it was just such an enthralling battle, I think, throughout.
Yeah, outstanding defensive performance from Michael.
It was really close, but that is kind of the race review of Suzuka in terms of it was an amazing drive from Kimi, and I always compare it. I think it said a Kimi moment of the week before, but it's almost like a movie style finish to a race, because if you watch like any kind of sport movie or motorsport, it's like just at the last second they've managed to do it, but it's real life. He actually did on the last lap manage to make that overtake and win the Grand Prix, which was massive for him in the championship, going on to the races later on in the season. But, what was your overall thoughts of it, Stephen?
It was just a great freeway battle between Schumacher, Alonso, and Kimi. I almost forgot. It was just amazing because we have so many races that always focus on the front drivers. It was all about that middle pack between Kimi, Schumacher, and Alonso. It was just great. It was great watching Schumacher in a definitely not one of the best Ferrari cars he drove, but he was holding off the superior McLaren and Renault cars, and it was just great. And it was just perfect laps. There was no DRS to help them. They had to really drive.
Yeah, it was kind of like the old master, obviously 7-time world champion at that stage, and 2004 was probably the most dominant of his world titles, against the new generation. Kimi had obviously run close in 2003 with Michael Schumacher. Alonso had emerged, and this Renault car had been very reliable and so competitive as well coming up, and so the young span, it almost felt like the next generation, the future of F1. It almost kind of felt a little bit like how if the Mercedes dropped off in the thing, how it would feel with Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc chasing Lewis Hamilton. It kind of feels, at that stage, these young, hungry drivers both searching for their first world title, kind of battling it out against the guy who's done it all. He's kind of been champion, he's got all the kind of experience and everything. It was just, it is brilliant to watch, and it's nice kind of going back and reliving these kind of classic races while we got time, because sometimes it's a race. I mean, it was about an hour and 40 minutes. I think it's quite a long time to kind of sit down and watch. I know you love, but when you're keeping up with all the new ones, especially with how the season's going on, it is easy to kind of get wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
So now we've got this space, it's quite nice to kind of do from there. And we'll just give you the kind of final race standings of how it finished in the race. So I'll put that up on screen for you now. In first position was Kimi Raikkonen, of course. His second was Juan Carlo Fisichella, third Fernando Alonso completing the podium. Mark Webber in the Williams finished fourth, with Jenson Button finishing fifth. David Coulthard sixth in the Red Bull. Michael Schumacher seventh, and Ralf Schumacher rounding off the points in eighth. Obviously back then the points were only 1 to 8, and it was literally 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So yeah,
I can't believe that 1 point for Ralph.
it's crazy from considering finishing from both.
Yeah.
Christian Klein in the other Red Bull finished 9th, so not a bad result. And you know, obviously they were the old Jaguar team by this stage. I think they were pretty much running the 2004 Jaguar at this stage, just in Red Bull livery, so it was all right. 10th was a very young Felipe Massa in the Sauber Petronas the year before he joined Ferrari in 2006. Rubens Barrichello finished 11th. Obviously he had 3 pit stops that day, I think twice under safety car and then once later on for refuelling. Jacques Villeneuve finished 12th in the end after that 25-second penalty. Tiago Monteiro, Portuguese driver in the Jordan finished 13th. Robert Doornbos in the Minardi finished 14th. Narayan Karthikeyan finished 15th in the other Jordan. Christian Albers was 16th and the last classified finisher in the Minardi, because there was a weird bit actually, we'll note that. His car seemed to be on a light
in the pit lane.
In the pit lane, so I thought he'd be retired, but clearly he kept going because...
It didn't look like a bad fire. It was just...
No, he was just surrounded in kind of fire extinguisher smoke, and they just kept spraying it. I don't know if he was in it or out of it at that time, but yeah, it was very interesting. Pizzonia obviously retired in the Williams. Jarno Trulli retired in the Toyota. Juan Pablo Montoya from that first lap retired in his McLaren, and Takuma Sato, like we mentioned earlier, was disqualified for that incident with Jarno Trulli. And it was quite, you know, interesting because the championship, Fernando Alonso was comfortably leading, but Kimi Raikkonen had closed the gap and now was 19 points behind Fernando Alonso, who was on 123 points with Kimi Raikkonen on 104. And as you could tell, it was a massive kind of 2005 was Kimi versus Alonso, because there's a massive drop off between Schumacher in third place with 62 points. Renault, it was important for them to kind of get that 2-3 because it gave them the lead in the constructors with 176 points, with McLaren being on 174 points, so very close in the constructors on that front. But that, guys, is our first classic race review. We hope you've enjoyed it. Next week we will be going into wetter conditions. If you'd watched our track comparison earlier in the week, we would have spoken about this race as one of your highlights. And which race is that, Stephen?
That is, of course, the 1998 Spa race.
Lots of rain, lots of carnage, lots of drama, and a very exciting race from start to finish. But it's a long one, but we are looking forward to kind of going back and re-watching that race. But yes, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments below what were your favourite moments from the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix. And also, if you want, you can start dropping some suggestions in the classic races of what to watch. We will be here every Sunday with a classic race review podcast. We know, obviously, that esports like Veloci Esports and Formula 1 themselves are hosting races on a Sunday to give you action, and F1 themselves did F1 Rewind, and I think they played the Brazilian Grand Prix yesterday from 2016, another kind of wet and carnage race on that front, with great drives, I think, from Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in that race. But yes, so we're doing our bit. I think we prefer the kind of classic race route rather than kind of any sort of esport. So yes, hopefully you've enjoyed that, and yeah, get involved in the comments below. And if they're new around here, Stephen,
they can like, they can subscribe, they can ding that bell.
Ding that bell. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.